So good morning, everyone.
Morning.
And thanks for coming out on this dreary October 30th morning, right before Halloween, to be a part of this important conversation. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Roger Blissett. I head the Legal Regulatory Affairs Group at MUFG Americas, and I've also been a part of the leadership team at the Pipeline Winning Strategies Initiative since 2007, addressing the achievement gap facing African-American boys and young men. Echoing Tanya's opening remarks and the reports that she also mentioned, sealing the leaks and diversity gap, these pipelines that we're exploring today and talking about, are incredibly important. I'm privileged to moderate the panel this morning. We had, like you heard, a last-minute substitution, but I know Mary Ellen will do a fabulous job. But consistent of the goal of today, we plan in the next hour to give you an overview of the work of each of these important panelists and their organizations, and to talk about the driving factors of these various programs. Now more than ever, as Tanya indicated in her remarks, their work is essential if the New York City Bar and its membership is going to achieve its diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. And moreover, the students who will join us hopefully later today need to hear how much their talents, backgrounds, and perspectives are needed for the bar to be successful tackling the myriad of challenges facing our society today. So before having each of the panelists briefly introduce themselves, please note that the views expressed during this panel solely reflect my personal views and opinion and those of each of the panelists, and may not necessarily reflect the thoughts and opinions of MUFG Bank and its affiliates or management team. So hopefully my card key will work after this panel. We have a lot to cover. We're going to try and take questions. So if you do have questions, hopefully there's some writing materials. You can raise your hand if you have any questions, and members of the team will collect them, and then we'll try and see what we can fit in. So with that, why don't we start off with Lydiette.
Hi.
Kick us off.
Thank you. Thank you, Roger. My name is Lydiette Diaz. I am the director of the CAP Leadership Institute at Latino Justice, Pearl Deaf. I run our pipeline programs. I have been with the organization for 12 years and in this role for the last 3 years. And so, Tanya, thank you for having us here today to talk about this really important topic.
JC?
Hi, good morning. My name is JC Polanco. I'm the president and CEO of the Council on Legal Education Opportunity Programs. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. I want to thank Tanya and her team for putting this important event together. We're celebrating our 55th year in making sure that we're there for students across the country that want to be attorneys but didn't know how. So very excited to be part of this. And before I go on, I recognize Jason Otaño, who's in the audience, who was recently promoted to Major in the U.S. Army JAG Reserve. Thank you for your service, Jason. And fellow Fordham Law Ram.
Mary Ellen?
And my name is Mary Ellen LaRosa, and I'm the Senior Diversity Coordinator for ODEIB here at the New York City Bar. And I also work as a research assistant for the Diversity Office at the Child Center of New York. I've been here about 2 years, and I'm excited to get up here and talk to you guys today.
So we didn't want to take anything for granted to start this conversation, so we're going to do some basics to kick us off. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists to talk about, what are pipeline programs? Well, what kind of, fits the bill when we're discussing what a pipeline program is? So Lydiette, you want to start us off?
Sure. So to me, pipeline programs are programs that help students learn about law school, stay on the path to law school, give them the resources, the guidance that they're looking for, and maybe not even have the awareness that they're looking for. And so for us at Latino Justice, that means starting as young as juniors and seniors in high school and working all the way through current law school students. And we even have a young professionals board. So once they have done that, finished that process, there are still resources there for them.
JC?
Well, pipeline programs recognize that we live in a world of pipelines. And we recognize that there are students across the country that naturally walk into pipelines where mom and dad and networks that they're just naturally born into, give them the opportunities to meet attorneys, to meet folks to network early on, to know how to think like attorneys, read like attorneys, make arguments like attorneys, and they live in a different world. So pipeline programs recognize that, and they say, we're going to fill in the gap. And as you just heard, we start early on. Many of us start in the high school years, work right through college, as early as freshman through senior. And we recognize that you have to stick it out with these folks that are trying to be attorneys. We stay with them through law school, all the way through the bar exam and beyond. So pipelines fill the gap that have been left behind because of systemic issues that we know exist. Our history is imperfect. We recognize it. So these pipelines are created to fill in the gap and to make realities happen.
Mary Ellen?
Well, pipelines for us, I echo all of that. Pipelines for us start early. We'd love to start in middle school, but right now we start in high school. And that goes all the way through undergrad, through law school, and we include early career. Retention is a huge pipeline issue, and early career, especially for marginalized folks, is where the pipeline starts to leak. And we want to make sure that we're supporting everyone so that you can show up as your authentic self at work.
Roger, can I just add, I mean, I think, Mary Ellen, you just highlighted there too, right? Starting younger. If students don't see themselves in these positions, they don't have the awareness that it exists, they don't know not only how to get there, they just don't even know that it's an option. So the earlier we can start, the better.
So while you have the mic, how do you indicate that your program exists? How do students even find out about your program?
Roger, another great question, and something that really came up also in the report that really resonated with me. It is that visibility. We get students that come, we get attorneys that come, well, I wish I would have known you existed. I wish we would have known you existed. Latino Justice Pearl Deaf has been around for 50 years. Education has been part of the organization since inception, right? Puerto Rican Legal Defense and Education Fund. And so we've had these programs, but it's that visibility. So we email, word of mouth, social media. We use all of the strategies. We are visiting undergraduate institutions. We are visiting high schools. We're doing the webinars, and it's still not enough. And so the more that we can partner, the more that we know what's happening, the more connections that we're making, the more access that students will have. But it's definitely visibility is an issue.
So JC, what about you? How do you think these programs and your program creates access for these students?
Well, we create access because we start early on. As you've heard, we start early on. We try to figure out how can we promote our programs, put ourselves in a position where students that want to be attorneys know about us. So part of that is using social media as much as we can. And, you know, this pipeline stuff is not sexy. It's just not, right? Think about it. We're not talking about Major League Baseball, World Series stuff. You know, we're not celebrities up here. So the idea that we're going to get all these followers and people are just going to naturally gravitate to a pipeline is just never going to happen. So we count on folks like yourselves, folks here at the City Bar, folks across the country to help us spread the word that for those students who never met an attorney and always wanted to be one, like I was in the Bronx on Fordham Road growing up, the only attorney I knew was Matlock, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. To folks like me can be, hey, you want to be an attorney? There's a great program that the Latino Justice has, CLEO has, where you can actually participate and get a mentor and be able to actually participate in something that we can captivate on a dream that you may have. My dream to be an attorney was in 3rd grade. So the idea of studying early, I think it's never too early to motivate young people to participate. So what we need is to make learning cool. To make it so that you can go on TikTok and see young attorneys in the courtroom, to see mock trials happening, and to be able to captivate those young minds that are right now being captivated by nonsense so that they can know that they can get access to mentorship, to LSAT prep, to bar prep, and make it relevant in their daily lives. So that's what we try to do, but it's really tough trying to make this that we do here as attorneys and in the pipeline program, to make it interesting, to make it so that you can click and stay on and follow and share. It's tough. So we do podcasts. We try to do everything we can, but it's becoming increasingly difficult in this very loud space that we're all working in daily.
So it may not be a subject of this panel, but you know, in thinking about this panel over the weekend and what we're going to discuss, you know, it strikes me that as a profession, we should be asking the question as to who is still interested in being a lawyer, away from the communities that we're talking about here today. You know, we hear about AI, we hear about all these different threats, but is a legal degree, a legal profession still, one of those desirable professions, away from, our communities and not having access. But anyway, that's a completely different.
Roger, you just started a whole new panel.
Yeah, my observation was whether the legal profession, writ large, is still a desirable profession, away from us wanting to make it appealing and having access to the students in these programs and generally. It's just a question, I think, why the bar needs to think about, getting more energy and appealing to new communities. I liken it to what happened decades ago with golf, right? I mean, the resurgence of golf based on people looking like Tiger Woods, right, changed the game. I'm wondering, same thing here in terms of the profession. If we are more inclusive and people look more like America, maybe there'll be a resurgence in terms of an appetite to become lawyers. Anyway, just an observation.
No, Roger, Roger, you mentioned something important. Now more than ever, people are very interested in the law. That's what I'm realizing. Because of the Supreme Court decisions that have come on, regardless of what side you're on, because of the politics of the day, I see a lot of young people, a lot of folks are very excited about being part of the most incredible profession. It's the only profession named in the Constitution, by the way. This is it. Protect democracy, right? That's what we do as attorneys. I can't believe I'm an attorney. Every day I can't believe I passed the bar, to be honest with you. But yeah, I think more than ever. I was just at the Latino Justice Law Day, and it was packed. I mean, it was standing room only. This was the program that you put on, Diaz. Amazing program. And everywhere we go, students of all backgrounds, especially from communities where we came from, are recognizing if you want to make a difference, you want to get that law degree and be in the room where it happens, to quote Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. But this is it. So I see a lot of excitement. It's about letting them know that there are pipeline programs that can help them get there. So we have the excitement, I think.
Mary Ellen, I don't know if you want to address the access issue.
Yes, so for TIMSL specifically, we're creating very targeted real-world experiences for our students, but one of the most important aspects, and one that seems to be on the rise but still kind of unique to us, is our approach to soft skills. And we try to empower our students with skills in like interview skills, office culture prep, making sure that they know about all of the kind of unspoken, unwritten rules out there that, to JC's point, your kind of personal pipelines that you might have with mom and dad's networks. If you don't have that, you're not necessarily going to know some of the unspoken stuff.
So let's turn to what the programs do for the students. Can you guys hear me? Because I have a mic on my breast. I don't want to have the feedback, so I just want to make sure you guys can hear me. Okay. So why don't we do a round table, and starting with you, Mary Ellen, what do you, stepping back, believe your program, your pipeline program, does for the kids that are or the young people in the program?
I think what TIMSLIP does more than anything is excites our students about, I get a lot of positive feedback. I'm lucky I get to work with the kids from before day one when they're just applying for the program. And even just going through the application process, a lot of them give feedback that, you made this less intimidating for me. Our office was able to, kind of walk them through a lot of times their first application process. So if nothing else, they're getting prep for college and they're seeing that this is possible, I can do this. Applications become less intimidating, interviews become less intimidating. I think it's a great first step, even if they're not going to pursue law.
JC?
So at CLEO, as I mentioned earlier, this is our 55th year. We've had over 30,000 alumni go through our programs every year. This year alone, we had 1,100 students come through our programs. Our programs are tailor-made. So we have a freshman and sophomore program called the Road to Law School. We're holding it here on November 18th at Fordham University. And those freshmen and sophomore come in and they'll hear from law professors and how to think like an attorney, how to start thinking about briefing cases and what to expect throughout the application process, so that they're well prepared as they go on to junior senior year, where we have a program called Jumpstart the LSAT. In Jumpstart the LSAT, we understand that there's a standardized exam. We're not asking for any freebies. We want to make sure that our students are well prepared to take the test and go toe to toe with other applicants. So that's junior and senior year, and then we help them through the application process on senior year, help them with their statements, their diversity statements, get everything in order, provide them with financial aid counseling, and then the summer before their first year of law school, we have a very renowned program called PLSI, the Pre-Law Summer Institute. For 6 to 8 weeks, students from across the country dorm at a law school and live at a law school, and they take classes with actual law professors at that law school. This summer, we had it at Mitchell-Hamlin in Minnesota. And they're there. It's the boot camp getting you ready for 1L. We know how important it is to go in there, and you're going toe-to-toe with students from across the country that are well-prepared. So we take that 6 to 8 weeks to get them ready to go. After that, we know that that first year of law school is tough, and we know that sometimes it's hard to make it through. So we have an Attitude is Essential program, where many of our PLSI students stay with us through that first year. We have mental health folks come in and talk about the importance of, giving yourself time and giving yourself the space. And then we have some, learning intensive tutoring for those students that find themselves that they need to be better prepared in some subject or the other. But the important thing is not only a pipeline that understands the different eras or the different years in which students may be in, but to understand that you need nurturing along the way. That's so key. So that's what we do each and every step of the way, so that our students at the end of the day are excited that they're CLEO alum, and they come back and give back to students that have gone through the program. And today we have alumni sitting at every level, they're judges at every level of government. We have members of Congress. We have folks in C-suites, partners all over the country. We have the Chief Justice of Criminal Court of Appeals for the Army JAG Corps, General Sullivan. We have so many interesting people that came where I come from, where many of you come from in the audience. So we're happy at CLEO that we have a proven system that works, and it is always focused on preparing students to go toe-to-toe. So that's what's exciting about CLEO to me.
Yeah.
Sure. So we have also seen an increase in participation in our programs, both numerically, but also in geographic scope. Our programs went fully remote during the pandemic. We saw the rise of George Floyd, this new awareness of social justice movements that really have attracted more and more and more people like us into the field. We had so many students that we actually had one program we had to turn away students. We're trying to defer them to the winter or bring them back to the summer so that they're able to get these resources. But what they are walking away from with any one of our programs is confidence, the confidence that I can too do this. I can do this. I see the people on the other side who have made it that look like me, that have a similar lived experience. I can do this. So it's that confidence. We give them food for thought. You know what? Maybe I shouldn't be applying in 2024. Maybe I have to still get my ducks in a row and wait and apply till 2025. And you know what? And sometimes it is this awareness that maybe this is not the profession for me, but we're giving them those soft skills to be successful in whatever field they decide to pursue. I think recognition, again, I can do this. I can do this. It's just huge, right? Information, resources. We partner with Access Lex, LSAC, so that they understand what is new and upcoming with the LSAT. How do I really finance law school? What do I need to think about beyond the tuition? Mentorship. We've talked about mentorship all morning, right? That's key. So we partner them with our Young Professionals Board or other folks that are interested in giving back. And just access, opportunities that they would not have otherwise had.
So looking at it from the student's perspective, right? They've gotten access, they know about it. Mm-hmm. Why would they make a decision to increase their day, their weekend, or whatever else? What are they going to get out of this? What's the sales pitch from each of your programs in terms of what they get out of it? Is it just the folks who want to go into law, or is it broader than that? To your point about confidence.
Right. I mean, I think for us, it is pipeline programs, but it's leadership development, right? And so you can take that into any field, but what do they get from us is the information, guidance, that nurturing that JC was talking about, right? We are there through every step of the process. We want to give back. Let us know how we can help you.
JC?
I think students who want to be attorneys or who want to enter the legal profession, they're special type of students. I mean, we were ambitious at one point. We really wanted this, and for those students that are looking to get there, knowing that they have a pipeline program is something that would excite them, right? And let's say they don't want to be an attorney. Very few attorneys actually practice in a courtroom. That's one of the things we always tell our students. That's the beauty of our profession. We're everywhere you could imagine, from that hip hop song on the radio to that new app that you like, you'll find an attorney somewhere involved. And this is something that we like to share with them. But the most important thing is that they need to start understanding the importance of networking. And that's something that a pipeline offers because of the mentorship component. So at the very end, if you don't want to be in that courtroom, that's fine, because you have so many attorneys that don't practice that kind of law. But then you have a network that you need. And students that are ambitious like that understand the importance of a network. So it's almost like a natural calling for them once they realize that a pipeline is more than just coming in and taking a class. It's about who's your professor, who are your classmates, who's the folks at CLEO, who are the folks you're going to meet at Latino Justice, and et cetera. So they like that, and that's what I've seen throughout the years.
Mary Ellen, what about your program in terms of what you think kids think they get out of it?
I think the biggest thing that students get at TIMSLIP is going to be the exploration. We are upfront from day one that, law, this is a chance to explore the legal field, not necessarily lock yourself into, I've done this program and now I have to go on to law school. We have alumni that come back and say, we're doctors now, we're teachers now, but here's X, Y, and Z that I took from TIMSLIP that helped me to get there. And so, yes, we are a legal pipeline program, but really we want to create access for every industry. We just want students to know that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to become an attorney and then shout us out, that's great, but we just want to make sure that you get wherever it is that you want to be.
Roger, the other thing I will add is community, right? They are not just building, and to add on that network, right? Not just networking with the attorneys and the networks of attorneys that we have, but they're also building in communities within their cohort, right? And so then it's a shared experience. How are you prepping for the LSAT? Did you hear that this came out? Did you hear that that came out? This scholarship is up. Did you apply for this scholarship? So it's also community building. The representation is small, right? And so building that community early on will also help them to stay, in that pipeline or be successful again in whatever field they select.
So one of the things that I'm curious about also, and I'm sure folks in the audience, is let's talk about the obstacles based on the constituencies that we're talking about that these students face, and how do each of your programs address that reality? Mm-hmm. You want to start off?
Sure. So we have our first program is our Next Generation Lydiette Mentorship Program, and we call it NGL. That program, while it targets students as young as juniors and seniors in high school, it really goes through the gamut as long as they are pre-law. But we put on webinars. We put on monthly webinars. And one of the series that came out of this program was Overcoming Obstacles. Like I mentioned, we partner with Access Lex and LSAC, and so we talk a lot about the LSAT and we talk a lot about financing law school, because those are the two biggest obstacles. But we recognize that there are more obstacles impacting our communities. So this series ended up discussing mental health and disability, and this came out during the pandemic, which we saw really a rise in folks having more awareness of mental health issues. And so we had that conversation. We had one on immigration status, we had one on contacts with the legal justice system, and then we had one on LGBTQIA+, right? So what is this experience in the field, both in law school as a student and as a practicing professional? And so we're having these conversations. We had a conversation about imposter syndrome. We had a conversation about, when your family, your abuelita, your tia, are calling, oh, you're the attorney, how do you solve this for me? How do you, find that work-life balance? So we are having these conversations about what are the other obstacles that we're not having as a group conversation, and having them and exposing them and continuing to have those conversations.
JC, what about your program in terms of identifying what the students' obstacles are and addressing them?
I couldn't agree more with you yet. I couldn't. You're absolutely right. I think the number one issue is imposter syndrome. The idea that, oh, that's not for me. I've always wanted to be, but I don't know how to get there, or I can't do that, or I hear it's really tough, or it's very expensive. And they kind of like check themselves out at times, and what they need is an encouragement, right? That you can do it, and you're not an imposter for thinking this, and there are actual people out there that have gone through it from where you come from, and you can make it happen. That's the number one issue as I speak with students, and when they finally decide to reach out to us and talk to us about it, you can see it in their faces sometimes, am I crazy for thinking I could do this, right? And that's one of the main issues. And the other that Lydiette mentions that I agree with is financial. A lot of us had to work through college, and I taught during the day, went to law school at night, and the idea of how am I going to pay for this is something that is very tough. So what we do is that we provide financial aid counselors, and deans of financial aid come in to speak to our students regularly so that they can start thinking about how to go about applying for financial aid and grants and the like. But I start to see that the law school experience is so expensive. I mean, I did a JD MBA at night while teaching during the day. I had to borrow $250,000, and I kid you not, Jason is here. We were there together. You could ask him. It was so expensive. I'm paying until I'm 71 an enormous amount of money every month in student loans. And you know, I say that because folks are thinking, like, should I do this? Is this worth it? And I think law schools are very expensive. And you know, I don't know what we can do about changing that at all. But what I think we should do is encourage students to look and think outside the box. And while we're speaking to students that are concerned about how they're going to pay for these law schools, you know, encourage them to look at state schools. Encourage them to look at state schools outside of New York even, and then get residency while you're there. Because there's many opportunities when we speak to students, and there are so many law schools outside of New York that are dying for students from our communities, and we'll help them get in, and we'll do everything so that they can go. So yes, I agree 100% yes, imposter syndrome and financial.
Absolutely.
Similarly, for our program, financial barriers seem to be the biggest concern among students. And so, yes, you're going to get paid for your internship, but not for 2 more weeks. And how do you pay to get to and from your internship? So like Cleary and like a lot of other pipeline programs, we work with the Student of Pupil Transportation and provide Metro cards for students. And so they're full fare for the entire duration of the program. But just this past summer, we got feedback that, you know, that's not cutting it. I have to get on a bus first. And that becomes a burden. I think it's very easy to forget as adults with jobs that bus fare is still expensive, especially when you're 15 years old. And so we're always updating and evolving the program so that we can make sure that we're covering all of their needs. Students shouldn't be paying to get the most out of this learning experience.
So now flipping it from your own programs in terms of what you're doing to address the obstacles to what we as a community could be doing to assist these kids in these programs. So what is the collective challenge you would issue to each of us in terms of addressing some of these obstacles?
Sure. I mean, one of the things, that I've certainly gotten through all the prep calls that we've had for today, it's just that, and Tanya said it this morning, there are 50 programs out there. There are 50 programs out there that just service New York City students. We need to be working together. We need to identify what it is that we're doing and how we're doing it more efficiently. That's one, big one for me. And then the other one is more financial support to run the programs that we run, right? I shared earlier, we had to turn away students. We have 2 full-time staffers that are running 5 or 6 different programs at a time. So how are we financially supporting staff to be able to run these programs? Mary Ellen, you mentioned it before, right? The students, we also offer students a stipend, or not a stipend, a Metro card to get to and from, their homes to get to our programs. But they're coming from the tri-state area and sometimes beyond. We had students fly in from Arizona, right? So what are we offering to students? But for me, it's definitely that partnering and getting more resources into the program, financial resources.
JC?
I mean, it's like hitting behind Derek Jeter after Diaz goes, right? It's like, what am I going to say to that? It's over. It's a wrap. She's absolutely right. We thank Tanya and Mary Ellen for sending all those and creating a communication between us and those groups, because that's so important. We could work collectively, and the synergy would be amazing. And financial is without a doubt. Listen, for those of you watching at home or seeing this later on, and for those of you here in the audience, I just want you to know we have all the money collectively. We have all the money to make sure that the law looks like America. We have it. We have all the money to make sure that students go to law school and make sure that they get all the services they need. We have the money now. The issue is that the money's in your checking accounts. It is. It is. So I would encourage all of you to consider looking at our programs and see where you can best provide assistance, either in time or money, to make this a reality, because it's going to take a lot of work. But we are committed, and I know you are as well. So again, thank you. You're right, Diaz, is absolutely the case. Thank you for that.
Mary Ellen, anything to add to that?
Surprise, it's funding. We are, JC's right. The money is out there. We just need to get it. I did want to speak to a point that you made about that this is a collective effort. DEI in general and pipelines are not a zero-sum game. We can't afford to be in competition with one another. We need to serve, in order to serve our constituents best, we need to work together. And so I think conferences like this and even just the prep like you were talking about is a great way to connect and see where we align and where we can best collaborate.
So JC, given that you claim that she's the Derek G, I'm going to give you the first stab at this one, okay? So what are the highs and lows of your work that you want to share with the audience?
The highs are when we get the calls and the emails thanking us for our help because they just passed the bar exam. That is a thrill. It is. I mean, the bar exam just happened and we're just getting thank yous, and it's just, wow, we really made a difference. And that makes going to work and doing this all the worthwhile. And seeing and being invited to swearing-ins is just great. So seeing the success is always fun, right? And it's a high for me to see so much excitement. And I really did get such a boost at Law Day of Latino Justice, seeing so many people excited about law school. That really is exciting for me. The low is when folks use business metrics in this space. I'll give you an example of what I mean. When you're in business, you know if you're successful because the bottom line, right? You brought in enough clients, you had enough billable hours, you broke records, there's dividends to pay out, this is great. We know when you're successful. When you're in politics, did you get enough votes? Easy, you're successful. Here in this space, it's difficult to quantify. And often we run into an environment where that idea of how do you prove success in a diversity pipeline? How do you prove success in a pipeline program like ours? When you have graduates that come through our programs, do you measure it by their salaries? A lot of our folks want to do public interest work. A lot of them want to go back to their communities and do not-for-profit. A lot of them want to go teach at the schools where they're from and run mock trial programs there. Do you quantify it like that? Do you quantify it by who goes to big law, who goes into government, who becomes a solo practitioner? And I think that we have to break away from putting everyday business analytics to when it comes to pipeline programs. Because our work, it's intangible at times because what we do is tough. And what we do is that we try to get folks to come and become attorneys and go through the program and go out there and make a difference. So how do you quantify that? Do you want to see how many of our students pass the bar? How many of them graduate to law school? How many? So that's tough. So it's trying to break that line of thinking from folks that would like to help us, asking us, let me see your numbers. It's very difficult for us. And in order for us to break away from that, we have to remind folks, and I need collectively, remind folks that when it comes to pipeline work and getting folks from where we come from to become attorneys and to go through law school, you want to look for different metrics. And they may not be the ones that you use at your law firm. And that's a big low for me right now, but I want to make sure that we collectively change that mindset.
Mary Ellen, highs and lows of your work?
Sure. The highs are, of course, the feedback, and we do get a lot of positive feedback from our students, not to brag. But even just the students that take me up on my offer to just email us and say hi, and just let us know what they're doing. We're forming genuine connections with these students, and they want to keep up with us. So that's always fun to hear what they're up to, hear what the youth is up to, because they definitely humble me very quickly. I'm not in high school anymore. The lows are, for our office, are when we have to waitlist students. We never turn anyone away, but we do make it clear and make sure they understand that there aren't enough spots for everyone. This past year, we had 435 students apply, and we were only able to place 40. And so they remain on the wait list. We do circulate other pipeline programs and try and help them to, determine what other programs might be of interest to them. But having to send out the email to say, the program is, beginning next week and we don't have the spots for you is definitely the lowest low of our program.
What about your highs and lows?
Sorry, I'm trying to write my notes so I don't forget. JC, I want to build on the point that you just made. It's not just even trying to get those business analytics, but when you are asked that question and you want to be able to respond to it, I have to make a choice. Am I planning my next program, or am I trying to collect this data, gather this data, package it up really pretty to get it to you? And for me, it's going to be, I'm going to continue working on my programming because these students need it now, right? But it is a delicate balance of, we need the funding in order to do the programming, but we need to get the programming out there for our students. And the highs are very similar, right? The feedback from students to hear, wow, this really changed, opened my eyes, cemented this desire that I have. But I think for me also, it's been this community building, right? I have, folks from our young professional board, or we went and talked to an affinity group at a firm and they want to give back, right? So when we're putting together these programs, we already have volunteers that are coming out. I want to be on that panel. I want to be a panelist. I want to mentor. Oh, you have that hour session, sign me up for that. We had our law day. How can I be on that panel and give back? And so that's also been really encouraging to know that I don't have to not just pull together the programming and pull together the panelists. The resources are there and they're endless. And so, thank you, right? Thank you for folks that are stepping up. I also have been really intentional about connecting our pipeline so it doesn't just become a one-off. You come to this program and you're done. No, I want you to stay on that continuum. And so what we have done is pulled alumni to then moderate the next panel or to be a panelist, right? And then it elevates their public speaking or a skill set, that we want to elevate for them. It elevates them publicly, right? They're putting it on LinkedIn. People are seeing the things that they're doing, and we're keeping them connected to the organization and to the programming. And so to see those students who came in sort of maybe more shy, more reserved, to be in these roles and to be given these positions and opportunities is another high for me. So there's many that definitely keep me doing the work, and the long hours, seemingly okay, because that it's for a good cause.
So I'm going to take moderator's privilege, and I'm going to hold on the metrics point. We'll come back to it in the Q&A. That will be the first question I'll have. But in terms of, a lot of times we've talked about funding here being a challenge. Is that the biggest obstacle to your work, or is there something else that the audience should know about that impedes or is a hurdle that you guys have to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
I'd be happy to take that. Aside from funding, just firm buy-in has been difficult. We've had firms that have pulled out because they found someone else and don't want to go through our program, and firms that have given our students a tough time and they've wanted to end the program early. And it's surprisingly difficult to make clear that this is not just cheap child labor. This is which I think some people definitely view it as, but this is an experience for these students. This is an opportunity for them that you are, helping to facilitate. But this is not about you, and I think a lot of firms don't necessarily like to hear that, and so they're either pulling out or they're just not entering the system with us, and that's definitely been a challenge. As I said, we only had 40 students we were able to place, so that was like 35 firms. There are at least 5 more firms in New York City. We definitely, that's a joke. There are definitely a lot more firms that could be buying in to the pipeline programs, but are not.
What Mary Ellen said, it's true. Getting firms to buy in it's very tough. The funding is tough, and staying relevant in this space is difficult considering how fast things are moving online, how some schools, they may say, oh, I know Latino Justice have been doing it for 50. I know CLEO's out there for 55, but I think we could do this, on the fly. It's not that easy. And when they do that, it makes it difficult because we were counting on we may have been counting on that law school support. So we're dealing with modernity and the issues that exist with folks that are just popping up thinking that they can do things like these national pipelines have been doing for so long. That's problematic in a space where competition is fierce for funding. So I would say a combination of things, but funding overall.
I agree, and then just going back to visibility, right? If the students don't know the programs exist, then they're not going to find them. You know, we've started to put together surveys after programming so that we can get that feedback and understand. A lot of students are finding our programs through a Google search, Googleando, right? And so then, you know, it's on our comms team that right now consists of one person, figuring out what's that word search optimization so that our students are getting the information, ensuring that our website is up to date so that when the students are looking for information, they find out what's happening with the program in real time. And so funding, visibility are definitely obstacles.
So I see that we're collecting some questions, but as we get that together, let me ask a couple pre-organized questions and do another round robin. And we're going to start with you, JC, since just to make sure we avoid the GD phenomenon. So how has this case specifically impacted your work, the SFFA case?
You know, it's interesting. It's been more impactful in the minds of students, in the culture of it all. When I heard the Supreme Court decision, it really impacted me because I have benefited incredibly from affirmative action. I've stood on the shoulders of giants of the civil rights movement. My parents are from the Caribbean. And I know I stand on those shoulders, and I benefited a great deal from the work that others put in, and the systemic racism and issues they've had to deal with and the barriers they broke, I benefited from. So when I got that decision and I heard a certain Supreme Court justice ask a question, I kid you not, he asks, what is diversity anyway? Seriously, he asked that as he's up there. I mean, he had to be the least qualified Supreme Court justice in history. But yes, there he was asking what is diversity. And I sit there and I'm like, okay, so this impacted me. I remember how I felt. But then I realized that what we've been doing as pipelines this whole time is to prepare our students to go toe-to-toe. That's the first thing I said here. What we've been doing, the LSAT is anonymous. The bar exam is anonymous. You ain't getting any points because your parents are from the Dominican Republic. You got to score well on these exams. You got to have your network. And I said to myself, the Pipelines program have been working for that moment all this time. We've been working to get our students to go up against the guys that were dodging butterflies on the way to their classrooms as they jogged around the lake, while our students are dodging drug dealers and gangs on the way to school. We've been preparing our students to go toe-to-toe. So I think that the biggest obstacle is in the mindset of our students and in this culture out there that, oh, we're in trouble. We're not in trouble. The Supreme Court I think they made a mistake, but that's okay because our students can do well. And our students will do well, and we can go toe-to-toe. We can pass these exams, and we can pass the bar, and we're going to break records, and we're going to do it. And I think that there's space in their essays that I believe is an opportunity for them to talk about how their experiences have motivated them for to make them who they are today, where they can get their stories out. So this decision, I'm not going to let it be a Debbie Downer for our students. There's no way I'm going to let that happen.
Absolutely agree, but it has caused a pause, right? A moment for folks to sort of sit, do a risk analysis. Am I moving forward with these programs? An assessment that we even had to do on language. Is the language that I'm using going to pass? So it's definitely caused pause, but I think it's also causing some people to double down and say, no, this is what we need, and this is what we need more than ever.
Mary Ellen?
I want to echo that, Lydiette, that it does definitely cause pause for some people, but I think, at least looking in this room today, I'm hoping that we're all the double downers. We're doubling down on this. I had another point, but... affirmative action, the decision dropped right in the middle of TIMSLIP 2023. So we have yet, I think, to see the full impact of it. And so this coming summer, I'm going to start prepping next month. So in December is when we're really going to start to see how the SFFA decision is going to impact us. I think we're going to have a lot tougher time with firm buy-in than we already do. And I think a lot of students are also probably going to have questions. Is this okay? I want to go to college, and the Supreme Court says that this thing that looks a lot like affirmative action is a no-go. So do I even do this program? And so I'm definitely concerned about that.
So are you guys being proactive in terms of how you're soliciting students so that they don't self-censor or self-select themselves out of the programs? I know that we have the access issue, we talked about that, but in terms of your established channels, are you being kind of leaning in terms of making sure people understand, to JC's point?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
In what ways?
We are constantly communicating with pre-law students, explaining to them the programs that exist, and with updates as to how we're going to be able to get them through, by reminding them of our application process and our programs to help them through the application process. And I've taken the position that this ain't no thing. I tell them, we could do this. Let's go. Come on. This is where we have to get in. And we're seeing an uptick in our program enrollment because of it. So a lot of students are doubling down, and that's what I like to see. Us here running the programs, we know what the cautions are, but we want to make sure we show our students that there's incredible opportunities notwithstanding this decision.
And so they may not be able to check off a box, but they can still submit a personal statement, a diversity statement, right? And tell their story. And those words are powerful, right? So it's encouraging them to really prepare a document that represents them and tells their story in the best way possible. And we already know that writing can be tough for some of our students, right? So we talked at Law Day, I heard it at Law Day, right? What is the best way to become a better writer, right? So make sure that we're giving the students the guidance to read, to audit a class, to audit a writing class, to really strengthen that skill. And so as they're preparing that personal and diversity statement, they're telling the best story of themselves.
Mariella?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so in terms of what you're doing proactively to offset any self-selection or removal of any students who may be interested in your pipeline program.
Thank you. So what we've done proactively is something that Lydiette mentioned, which was examining our language, making sure that we are, keeping it all good in line with the decision. And we've changed kind of our path from identity to issue. So looking at access, the issue is access to resources, access to programming, access to professionals in the industry. And so while identity is still very much a part of that, that's been kind of our safeguard.
So I think we're at that point where I think we're still vetting some questions in the back. Let me start off, because the metrics question, I think, is probably one that the audience is going to have, and I know I have, in dealing with the work in some of the not-for-profits I've been involved in. So let's talk about that. I understand, JC, your observation that you can't do it based on salary, you can't do it based on certain other metrics, but passing the bar, getting into law school, those are pretty low-hanging fruit in terms of metrics. Are there any others? Because I think funders, they're not practitioners in the space. They want to make sure that the dollars that they're giving are being effective. Mm-hmm. Are there other metrics that you guys think would be worthwhile to be responsive to that kind of urge that won't tax you needlessly between making that choice between programs and collecting data? Just curious, just to go around the table.
Well, yes, I think it's important that we study where our students go. And it was a very expensive project that we were entering into at CLEO. When I came on as head, one of the things that I came across every day was this question. I want to know where the results are. I want to know where my money is if I want to keep supporting you. So we had to go out there and get the metrics. And Diaz and I speak about this all the time. This was expensive. We had to get funders to help us pay for the metrics. And what I'm going to do with those metrics, I'm going to share them with Latino Justice. This is what we're talking about, communication, so that we can see where students that participate in our programs go. But I think that if you're a funder, you want to see how many of your students got into law school and what did they do after. I think that's important, because if you can see that we kept in contact with our students, 30% of them entered the not-for-profit space, 15% went to big law, and this is where they are. I think it's a much better metric than just simply finding out, are they all in big law and how much money do they make? Because that's not the space that we're in. So we're so diverse as a people, and we're so diverse as attorneys in where we practice, that I believe it's very important to ask, let's see the total picture. How many of them went to be teachers? Because your funding helped that make that happen. So I really hope that funders will start realizing how important it is for us to first get those reports to you, because it's either I spend the money to get those reports, seek funders like NCBE to support us like they did, to get those reports, or do I make more programs or give more scholarships out for students to be able to participate? That's what you heard a little earlier. It's a tough balance. So understanding the analytics and the metrics, let's be fair about it. And let's understand that we're not here about, how much money our graduates are making. How successful are they? Where do they go after law school? I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, but it's even beyond that, right? What if they choose not to practice law? Does that mean our programs didn't do well? I mean, I don't think that that's true. I don't think that law school is for everybody. Okay, I see you. So I think that there's a lot of things to take a look at, but it's also just hard to collect that data. So unless you have funding dedicated to a staffer who's going to collect that data, it is difficult to do. So we actually have an undergraduate internship program that started 2 years ago. And so the last 2 summers, I've had students interning try and collect that data. But now we have emails that are connected to an undergraduate email that's not, in use anymore. So how do you even get in touch with some of these students with organizations that have, 50 plus years of history? So looking, to our youngest programs and trying to go back and collect as much data as possible, but also looking at the bigger picture. How are we measuring success? What are the tools that we're looking at? And also just collecting the narrative, right? Because we also need to build a narrative. It's not just about the numbers.
Real.
Absolutely. The qualitative data, I personally think, is even more important than the quantitative. Quantitative, of course, business case for diversity, but the qualitative, the narratives, we have a difficult time collecting data here. We're a small team of 3, and to have the funding to have someone back that and be able to help us collect the data would be the next thing we want to tackle. But right now we get lucky, and alumni will email us and tell us about what they've done since the program, but even that's going to be very biased because we're only getting the positive feedback, which is great, but we want a fuller picture.
And at the end of the day, the numbers show, right? There's still not enough diversity in the legal profession. So these programs are needed, punto, like the end. Like, the numbers are there.
So I think it's time for questions. Angie, I think you have, okay.
Is this on? Is it on? Yep. Okay, cool. It sounds the same to me. So we had some really great questions submitted, so thank you, everyone. We picked 3 at random. So again, we vet just to make sure that this is safe for everyone involved, and we don't want anyone to be triggered, but all the questions were amazing, so great crowd. Thank you. Alrighty, our first question. Speakers have emphasized the importance of mentoring and the challenges of imposter syndrome and low rates of law firm participation. How much exploration has been done around how firms that do participate could do to help train prospective firms' teams how to be a good mentor and how to handle/deploy cultural competency and sensitivity skills? To what extent is low participation a function of firms' skills impoverishment at doing this work? That's heavy.
Yes. No. Anyone want to take a stab at it?
I'm like, I think I need to see that question in front of me.
I'll bring it to you.
So
Can I get
somebody
the
else-
triggering question? Can I get the?
We didn't get any of those.
I don't know if somebody else wants to kick it off.
So do you have peer-to-peer opportunities for law firms who are in these pipeline programs to help law firms who are interested? I think is a part of the question
Yep,
that was posed.
Ms. Diaz, you?
I think she was reading it.
Oh, you're just reading? Yeah, so we have the law firm, we have many law firms that work with us, and they actually are, they work with us at every level. We have firms like Golston and Stores are just amazing because what they do is that they make themselves available for our students throughout the entire year. They work with us every single time, and they have a team of folks that understand the space. What does mentorship look like? What is it that you need to say? What do these students need? And it's just incredible to see when a law firm actually cares about this, how far they're willing to commit. It's not just about throwing money; they're involved. They're also calling us. How were those bar results? And the Tiffany pass, because Tiffany was part of the program for a while. So. We do have a very close relationship with many law firms, and we work with them closely. There could be more, and law depends on the law firm. Some law firms really care about this, and they really focus on making sure that their associates that do work with us are in tune with this. And what's so great is that the law firms that are into this stuff, they have lawyers and first-year associates that care deeply about this, and they're motivated as well to get involved. It's not like they're being forced to. That's always good to see.
My answer is I'm not sure what firms are doing between one another. I can tell you that my colleague here, Jose Perez, is here. We have gone to firms and spoken to their affinity groups about the work that we're doing, the programs that we have, and how they can be involved. We also have the Líderes Young Professionals Board that is comprised of many attorneys from a lot of different firms, and so they know, what we're doing, and they're speaking to one another, and then also bringing our programs back to their respective firms. For our class program, which is our Corporate Law Firm Alliance Summer Program, I have initiated a meet and greet. So all of the firms and corporations that are participating in that program do come together once a year, but they're already participating in the program, but they have this opportunity to speak to one another, to speak to one another, to be in the same room and to share space.
Mary Ellen, I had something to add, but go ahead.
Sure. So for our part, we actually did implement an employer training session this year, and we're hoping to build on that. So the students are getting their cultural competency or their office culture training, and then at the same time, the employers are getting their training, not only how to interact with high school students, but what is expected of them as employers. It's not just go through one summer and you're done. We want you to keep up with them. We want you to hopefully come back next summer. But the mentoring aspect, Tanya, making a note, we got to add that to training next year.
And I guess the other thing I would just mention is that the first panel, Cleary, they're a resource, I would imagine, to kind of maybe answer questions. Don't know if they're willing to have peer-to-peer conversations as to how to make mentorship programs work. But, 30 years of experience would be a shame to not tap into. So I would encourage folks to maybe reach out to them as well. Next question.
I want to just add one more response to that, and it's to the question of what firms can do to be supporting this work more. A lot more. You could be doing a lot more and learning about the various issues, including how you show up in these spaces, and making sure that we're not bringing the problems of our industry into these schools. And that's what the whole next panel is about. So I just wanted to flag that because this is something that is top of mind for all of us.
Thanks, Tanya. Okay. Second question, why would a student want to become a lawyer today when one must incur a great expense, work long hours to become a partner, and become an expert in one subject?
I would never do that. I would never do that. No, there's a billion reasons why you want to be an attorney. Then that's not, who asked that question? Where are you? Listen. There's so much you can do. You can teach. You don't have to be an attorney. You can do all sorts of, you could be an executive vice president at a company. You could lead a not-for-profit. There's everything you can do. Not everything involves long hours, thanklessness, mental health issues, alcoholism, and the like. There may be some, but that's not the case for a lot of us. We love this stuff, what we do. I don't think there's a better job in the world. There's not a better degree in the world. I teach at BMCC, and if any of my faculty members are watching, I've been teaching for 23 years, by the way, if you're wondering. And these PhDs walk around, they're so snobby, right? These doctors, PhDs, and I think they just have JD envy, and I'm very loud about it. You just wish nobody's gonna open up an office to talk to you about poems. Like Mr. PhD in English, I need a poetry consultation. So they have JD envy is what they have. I think the JD is the ultimate degree. I think there's so much you can do. I mean it from the bottom of my soul. You can do so much. You could do pro bono work. You could do criminal defense work. You could look at the social justice issues that impact you and get involved. And you could actually, it gets you in the room and you can have conversations about things that matter. And you don't have to do what I did and go to Fordham and get all those loans. You can go to a public school. You can go to state school. And this is what's great. More and more, and we just heard earlier from Cleary, where's my Haitian sister? She's here somewhere. I can't see her. But she also has a joint degree. I have a joint degree. Joint degrees are becoming very popular because it lets folks that have multiple interests really diversify what they're learning and make themselves more marketable. So I got a JD&B. I think she has an international graduate degree, international studies graduate degree. You have for those that are interested in working with children, you have social work graduate degrees that let you do a clinician work with kids. There's so much you can do that doesn't involve that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so